This episode of Speakers of Eidolon is made possible by our generous patrons. Special thanks to our supreme and master speakers, Omeji Cat Comet, Erizu Yamakawa, Circuit Barrakill, Remy Asalia, Arcadia Lunashine, Alex Franco AV, Winebow Brood, Psyche, Asuta Starbreeze, Cletus Oreo, Nina Grimstadter, Nat Clay, Lily Black, Bob Cece, Mikta Rapentau, Sapa Chakwatol, Edwin, Umbral Wind, Quick Levin, Pamela Isley, Camille Grinoa, Lenriel Maximus, Codrith Novelist, Mira Miri, Bay Barbalay, Suno Chicano, Celestao Notrell, Lazy Boy, Abaga Dragonite, Luke Osborne, Pandaloo Stormarrow, Tex, Yowie Wowie, Kai Lin, AJ Brainswordson, Anathus Moonscar, Arthur Law, Beridan Derard, and Cypup. Support the show and become a patron today at patreon.com/speakersxiv. Thank you.
This is Speakers of Eidolon.
Good evening, Eorzeans. Welcome to Speakers of Eidolon, episode 284. I'm Lakil Bravestone, and I'm joined today by Georgi Wiston and Mela Vanadar. Hello. It is January 29th, 2022, and our main topics today are two interviews done with Yoshi-P. It's about 14's design philosophy as an MMO. There's some more stuff in there. It's kind of interesting. It might sound a bit dry, but there's some good stuff in there. We'll also talk about patch 6.08, which released on Tuesday this week, which will be last week if you're watching on demand. Actually, would it be next week for the people? We've had this discussion before, but for me, the week starts on Monday. But I know that in a lot of countries, the week starts on Sunday.
I mean, it's Saturday for most people, so it's still Sunday.
It's a very good point that you just made there, Georgi.
Tuesday normally as well.
That's so true. It is Saturday, not Sunday. For you, it's Sunday, isn't it, Georgi?
Well, yeah, but I don't think you need to specify
go.
that.
It's Sunday for Georgi. I don't even know where this was going. Oh, yeah, sorry, about when it... okay, yeah, Tuesday this week, but if you're watching on demand, it was last week. All right. We'll also be reading MogMail, speakersxiv.com/MogMail, and stay tuned for the post-show. We'll be reading questions from the Syndicate. That's all. That's the show. So I think we can just jump straight into it. Here is recent events. Yes, and in recent events, we will start with the big news that the Oceanian data center has opened.
Wow.
Round of applause.
Congratulations, Australians.
Congratulations. Materia has opened. What was the first few days like? I saw that there was a little bit... There's a world that's full already, right?
Not full. It's not like...
It's like closed for character creation.
But yeah, it's closed. It's occasionally closed when it's over capacity, but like it's not like completely locked out. That is Ravana. Yeah. So the community has somewhat divided itself very not evenly, but like nicely. So Ravana is supposedly, I mean, we're a week in, or less than a week in, so there's nothing of this is like set in stone yet, but right. Ravana is supposedly where most of the raiders have gone. Zervan is where the raiders that can't get on Ravana have gone. Sophia is apparently where the RPs primarily have headed.
Okay.
What's next? Sephiroth is for streamers and shit posters, and Bismarck is for New Zealanders.
Wow.
New Zealand got the shittiest server.
Why are you like this?
You sent them to Bismarck. Okay. I'm assuming a lot of the congestion, if there is any, well, there is because people are making characters to get their free 15 days as well.
Yes.
So that will probably level off eventually. But
it's not just that; it's also the fact that so many people were trying to transfer their characters that we broke the Mog Station transfer system.
Yes. Chaos. So yeah, that looking. Besides that, it was a successful launch, I think, except for
I've seen no
Yeah.
major issues in regards to anything that people have been complaining about.
Right. Okay, so there you go. It is real. So Kotaku made, well, it's Kotaku Australia, did an interview with Yoshi-P about this data center. So I think we'll just read that. There's a couple of, well, there's some interesting questions here. Why did you choose Materia as the Oceanian data center's name?
Good question.
Yeah. The name Materia is actually the name, this is Yoshi-P saying this, the name Materia is actually the name of the first logical data center on the physical Oceanian data center. If it receives a huge boost in players and our service is expanded with a second logical data center, we'll need to decide on more
Getting
names.
ahead of ourselves.
So what I mean to say is we had no intention to call it Materia because of the location in Oceania, and instead the starting point was our desire to give it a name that expresses a concept from the Final Fantasy franchise. The name Materia is from Final Fantasy VII, and what is happening to my show notes? Are you seeing this? Okay, hold on.
No, I'm not seeing anything.
Because of the location, sorry. Final Fantasy VII, and many Final Fantasy fans are familiar with it, so I think people will easily grow fond of this name. There are many types of materia in Final Fantasy XIV too. As such, another reason for our decision was that we thought it would be great for various players to gather in a logical data center bearing this name. That is the most no answer I've ever heard.
I've always wanted to live in a data center that's named after something we jam into gear.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah.
Well, if materia is because there's lots of types of materia, so we want lots of types of players to go on Oceanian data servers. What the hell does chaos mean?
Europe.
Yeah.
It's just Europe. Yeah, okay. So how do you anticipate materia will affect current server congestion? Can players expect to see a reduction in current queue times? Currently, we're seeing a gradual return to how things were before Endwalker's launch, regarding the way players are engaging with the game. Also, we've observed that the amount of time logged in and the amount of time played continuously after logging in have started to vary from person to person. Some of the extremely populated worlds are experiencing congestion during peak hours, but we expect that things will gradually calm down over time. Furthermore, since there were no data centers in Oceania before, players in the region tend to be scattered across the 3 data center regions, Japan, North America, and Europe, and are mainly concentrated in certain worlds. As these players move to the Oceanian data center, there will be a greater spread of players across the data centers, which we believe will have some impact on reducing login queue times. Yeah, so that's us, kind of what we expect.
I'm very curious to see how much Tonbury's population is going to change.
Oh yeah, that's
true. That
true.
is the major English-speaking world on the Japanese data center. So that'll show to a certain extent how much it was bolstered by particularly Australians and New Zealanders, but English speakers throughout Southeast Asia in general.
It's interesting just for the JP servers in general, because I mean, while Tonbury was the Australian data center, I'm sure there were a lot of Australian and New Zealanders on other servers as well that are now moving back.
I would assume they would mostly be on the data center that Tonbury was on.
Yes.
But couldn't tell you what one that was.
Right. Right, because they have like 50. They have 50 data centers. Right. Are you able to... So that's kind of all he has to say about the Oceanian data center here. Well, actually, no. He talks about it again. We have a little detour. because they talk about Island Sanctuary, and we have like no info on Island Sanctuary, so we have to talk about this. Are you able to talk at all about Island Sanctuary yet? Will its release coincide with Materia's launch? Well, spoilers.
Well, definitely not.
No.
Well, hang on.
Yoshi-P says, hang on. Island Sanctuary will not be released as one of the 6.0x patches, but in the patch 6.e. He did what I said he was going to do. In the patch 6.x series instead.
It's not my memory. It definitely was 6.1x.
It was. I'm pretty sure it was, but then now it isn't. Now it's just 6.x. They're doing the Eureka thing. Yeah. Currently,
Eureka was just halfway through an expansion when it finally came. It was rubbish. Eureka was really badly.
Just wait and see. That's going to be the same thing with Island Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Currently, the development team has completed a mock-up and implemented the system, enabling us to now play the beta version. So they're on the beta version testing it, so it may not be that far off. But then again, he might just be talking shit right now. So who knows? Please look forward to information about the release schedule that will be announced in the future. Well,
I don't want a release schedule. I want a concept. I want to know what the hell it actually is.
Well, Mailer, you're getting a release schedule at the end of February, and you will enjoy your release schedule.
Yeah.
But what is it still?
Okay, so, from what he's saying here, there's a mock-up, and the system has been implemented, so they can play the beta version, which means we might be able to see something during the live letter. They might have maybe a screenshot of something.
They'll show the same piece of artwork
they probably will
time before now.
Yes. But yeah, there you go. It gives me hope that at least they might touch on it a little during the next live letter.
Yeah, but it needs, because the concept so far is like a little place you can put your minions on sometimes.
Yeah, and that they have like their own like currency like inside its own little bubble. It was weird. The little we know it's intriguing, but
not also not a lot.
No,
right?
No, we don't have a lot.
It definitely needs to be fleshed out.
And that makes it worse, because that's why a lot of people are bringing up like Animal Crossing and stuff like that, because we don't really know what they're making. They're falling into that. I keep saying Diadem for Eureka, but Diadem had the same issue where they were hyping up Diadem and just gave us a little bit and then didn't show us anything. So we all had these like
being just a new restoration project starting, or like the Dome and Enclave again,
like just
slightly
contained in a farm.
I sincerely hope it's not the Dome and Enclave.
No, I hope not. But if it's just putting minions down, what else is there to do? It can't be like.
Well, no, he said there was stuff like you could farm, and there's.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen in the artwork itself, it shows a paddock that has a horse, one of the muscle horses that Rollo hates, and a chocobo. So, like, there has to be something to that.
I just want to point out that the devs have not built up Island Sanctuary at all. Yeah, that's the point. That's the problem, because they threw out a few crumbs, showed us a really cool artwork, and then now we are left to speculate as to what it is. That's, I mean, if they'd just shown us anything, we would have been like, okay, that's what the content is. You can say it's
on the player's fault for hyping up themselves,
of course.
But it's
but they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, can players expect any special items to celebrate Materia's launch? Since this involves the opening of new worlds, various bonuses and items will be available for players choosing a new world. Having said that, we have not prepared any special items. If you're new to the game, we do have everything you need to get your adventure off to a smooth start, and I hope you'll enjoy your adventures while taking advantage of what is available.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't expect any unique items.
Well, hang on. I mean, before we move on, I think they got something pretty special, as you can see on screen. It's the most awesome artwork of Australasia.
Oh yeah, we haven't really mentioned
I
that.
want a Europe one so badly.
We're never going to get anything.
Look how good it looks. They've made Wellington like hell, apparently. It's got Tasmania, it's got the Great Barrier Reef, it's got a scree.
Look at the sheep on the bottoms on the southern island of New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
Maybe,
I mean, it's so good.
Yeah.
It has a serpent of Ronka. Maybe the equivalent of serpents of Ronka live in Mericidia on in Eorzea.
Yeah. I like that it has a customized Uluru icon as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
cool. I like it.
So I've had a little bit of a chance to play around on Sephiroth in Materia specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Is this what double weaving is like? Because this is a mythical concept to me up until this point.
Yeah. Yeah. God, you
It's
have
weird.
been... Yeah.
You've just been playing the game wrong.
You've
for
been
so
playing
long.
the way we played A Realm Reborn in like
Yeah.
2.0, which was not great. Which was so bad that we complained and got new servers. You've had to play
You might be able to play
like this
Machinist.
until now, which is sad.
I mean, I don't want to play too much on it because then I'll just not be able to go back, which I need to be because that's where the majority of my stuff is for two reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Me being able to like not take damage if you leave the AoE circle after the AoE circle has already disappeared. Very, very mind-blowing.
Things we take for granted, but yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Also, I just like that the housing districts are completely closed off.
Oh yeah.
Because I went to do the Uldar unlock one, and then I went and said, this area is not available.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, obviously, because the game is so spaghetti that anyone that transfers over, they can't prevent them from buying in that region because it's technically already unlocked.
Right. Yeah.
Can you not complete where the heart is or whatever it's called then?
No, you can't. You can't complete that in any of the regions.
That's funny.
Good lord.
Oh well.
Well, at
But
least
I'm glad
you can look around. You can look around the Ishgardian one, Imperium,
right.
because that's not available anywhere.
No.
They don't have
That's
to
true.
technically hide that because no one can buy there.
That's so weird. Was that the same way they did it with Spriggan, Mela? Do you remember Spriggan and whichever the other one was? Louis
They
Swan?
turned off housing, so I think you just couldn't go into the. They must have done it so you can't go into them.
Yeah.
Because people were shouting and complaining.
God,
day
that
one.
was so funny.
That was so funny.
I
People
love-
paid money to transfer or whatever, and they were like,
They transferred like beforehand, like the day,
Yeah.
like some days before. Oh, and the screaming!
Idiots.
It was so good.
that was so funny.
Well,
I've
yeah.
seen some-
Go on.
I've seen some dregs of the Graha cult on Materia, but I haven't
Well, that's
seen
good.
many of them yet. I saw
Mhm.
Dragon Graha specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Ah.
Okay.
I'm all about the cream cheese person or whatever they're called. I'm glad you got to experience how the game's meant to be.
Yes, you've got a taste of what the game's supposed to be like. Okay, well that is Oceania. Congratulations, Oceania, with your new data center. Moving right along, this is kind of tied to this opening. Final Fantasy XIV is back on sale. You can buy the game now. You cannot, however, you can't get the free trial still, because they need to monitor server stability still.
That's fine.
That is still very
accept
funny to me that we are still at that point where 14 is literally too popular. They cannot risk having a free trial. So
they gave too much content into it. Revert it back to level 20.
Yeah, right?
Or whatever it was.
See, this is a side effect of them upping the free trial so much because you get like, what is it now? It's like through Heavensward?
60.
It's up through Heavensward, yeah.
Which is because you can do everything on one character. You can get every class up. You can do all the relics for 2 expansions worth. There's too much content if you want to be that kind of player.
Yeah. So I mean, you're getting like 2 games for free technically. So so that's on hold still. But yeah, you can now buy the game. So if wouldn't it be weird if someone was watching this and didn't have Final Fantasy XIV and they're just, maybe they started watching after it stopped being on sale and they're like, oh, I can't wait to play the game. Well, here you go. You can buy the game now. Welcome.
Or if you're a free trial player and you want to play the game again, buy it.
Yeah.
You need to buy it. Yes. Yes.
Wouldn't it have been strange if they didn't tie this to the release of the Oceanic data center? So they're just a bunch of like empty servers because the only people that can get on there are people that already have the game. So like any Australians are like, oh, finally it's time to play the game. They made it available to us.
Yeah. No. Okay, well there you go. Tell your friends they can buy the game now. All right, moving on. The Omega outfits are now for sale on the Final Fantasy XIV
You
online
asked
store.
for them.
Yeah, a lot of people wanted these, so now they're here, and I'm sure a lot
Yeah.
of you have had a lot of fun with them.
Yeah. and I'm sure a lot of you expected more, but you got what you deserved. It's a 1Z that can't be dyed.
That's true. That is true.
It's also, it has this strange behavior of making male characters look very anemic when they wear it.
Oh yeah.
It's like the anti-Minfilia effect from this. It's a very strange thing.
Yeah.
Looks very funny on a few races.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad the people that wanted it got it, because this was probably like one of the most requested ones. Outfits.
Yeah, but big question to those people: the Omega gear from that tier that looked in this style is better looking and can be mixed and matched. Why do you need this version?
Well, they have it now. It doesn't matter.
But you've got it. So pay £7 for it or whatever.
Yeah.
And enjoy it. And don't dye it.
That is weird. It's weird that there's no dyeing option. It kind of feels like they were a little cheap on this one, but whatever.
Very cheap. But you can dye the Omega gear in game. So
that's true. That's true.
But you've got to do Savage for that though. Ooh,
yeah.
Scary.
Yeah. That is scary. We haven't done that yet. All right. Moving on. Patch 6.08. How exciting. A 0.08 patch, everyone. It has been released. There's some buffs that we need to talk about, which is the primary bulk of the patch.
I don't think there's any nerfs. Well, arguably there's one, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to it. But yeah, this sort of lines up with what Yoshi-P said about not nerfing Reaper, but instead bringing all the other jobs up to its level. And I think that might be what we're seeing here. So we'll start with Paladin, who has had buffs.
Oh, yeah. This is good.
Some of them are quite significant. So, well, Spirits Within.
The blade chain is impressive,
Spirits Within has got a tiny buff from 250 to 270, which, whatever.
Which you don't use anymore.
Yeah. Expansion is
lower levels.
Expiation has had a potency increase from 300 to 340. So now you're already starting to see pretty significant buffs. Blade of Faith has had a potency increase from 250 to 420.
I agree with that change. I agree with that.
Yeah, that's very good. And Blade of Truth has had a potency increase from 350 to 500.
I agree with that change. I love this.
And Blade of Valor has been increased from 420 to 580.
Ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah. That is...
But they're massive skills.
Yeah.
Visually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They should do the appropriate damage. And, you're a tank, so you're not going to be doing, massive damage.
Right.
And I believe Paladin had the weakest DPS of the 4 tanks. Maybe Warrior might have in, high-end content.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We'll get to Warrior, because that one made me laugh. But it's overall big buffs, and also those last 3 attacks, like Mela said, they're very big and flashy attacks, and it was kind of underwhelming with the damage they did before. Now it's going to be more fitting. Oh, they were still good. Yeah. But now,
in perspective, the first one now has the potency of the last one.
Yes.
And the rest have increased, so it's very big.
Yeah. Warrior. Of all the things to have its potency increased, Tomahawk has been increased from 100 to 150.
But Warrior's already...
Tomahawks.
Warrior gets to be like this self-healing maniac at the moment.
Yeah.
So do they need
it was just funny
as well?
It's like if they updated Shield Lob for Paladin.
Shield Lob could do with some extra damage, to be fair as well.
Shield Lob was already at 150 though.
Yeah. Tomahawk was always below Paladin, so I guess it's just brought it back to its level. Monk. Jesus, these potencies. Yeah. Phantom Rush has been increased from 1,000 to 1,150.
That shouldn't be allowed.
I mean,
something
because
that high.
the potency is already so high, you don't really. It doesn't sound like that's a big increase. That's 150 potency increase, which is quite significant. So, shield love isn't 150; it's 100. So actually,
okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. So there you go. I thought it was
So-
150, but okay,
I thought it
100 then.
was too. So I assume Phantom Rush is used on like a 1 or 2 minute cooldown.
Mm-hmm.
I assume you can't just spam this
Right.
powerful skill.
I'm not leveled monk.
I have no idea.
No,
how it works.
like I've said
No.
before,
I've not
I
even played new
can't
monk still.
comment on monk
Since
at
they
all.
turned it into a balanced druid or whatever, I haven't played it.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, it's fun though.
Yeah. Okay, so Dragoon, which is another job I'm not an expert on. Dragon sights. This one has had a lot of changes. Range has been. It's quite a significant range increase. It's been increased from 12 yalms to 30 yalms.
That's big.
Pretty much anywhere in the arena now.
Yes.
Well,
So
that's not the important part of it, though.
No.
No.
The target party member is no longer required to remain within 12 yalms in order to receive the effect of left eye.
I don't know about that change.
What's
Because it felt very integral to the ability, but
what's sad is that they've killed the tether because it says the
No, I know,
channeling
it's very
animation
sad.
between the Dragoon and their target has been removed.
I
against
don't
this.
understand why this was removed because Fey Union's range was extended from like 15 yards to 30 yards in 0.05, and they kept the tether for that. Why did they take this away from the Dragoons?
I can theorize that it could be confusing. Also, it's very big. Like, imagine if this
but
goes
it makes you
30
feel good.
yalms.
No,
It
all right,
does.
I'll tell you. No, right. If I'm a DPS and someone casts Dragoon Sight on or Dragon Sight on me, and I get that tether, I'll know I've got it. So I'll remember to stay close to them and try and DPS more. Now I won't have a clue when anyone's put it on me.
Well, the idea is that you won't need to know anyway.
Yeah,
because
you don't need
No,
to know.
At
I
any
won't.
range, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No, I don't like this change too much.
I can see why, because in
It's
fights that are very
simplifying it.
hectic and has a lot of like visual stuff on the in the arena, this tether being stretched like 30 yalms across the arena could be confusing in
yeah.
like a tight spot. Okay, so that's the change there. Raiden Thrust has had a potency increase from 260 to 280. That's not a lot. Stardiver, however, has had a potency increase from 500 to 620. So 120 potency up there.
Not too common a use, I don't think.
Heaven's Thrust combo potency has been increased from 430 to 480.
That's quite good.
And Chaotic Spring has had a combo potency increase from 240 to 260, and a rear combo potency increase from 280 to 300. So
Not bad.
I don't think any Dragoons are complaining, other than maybe the Dragon Sight changes, like just because they lost the visual.
If they're increased, I agree with the tether being across the arena thing. Maybe add a visual effect to the person who's got it though.
Mm-hmm.
Just something to make sure you know you've got that on you.
Yeah.
I think that it is valid to have a visual effect.
Yeah. Okay. For Ninja,
Oh god.
these buffs are there's nothing major in terms of what's been like the increases.
A slight increase on a few abilities.
I don't know if we need to go through them actually, but there's a
They're
one
mainly combo actions.
Yeah, they're combo actions.
You've got an increase on Spinning Edge, Gust Slash, Aeolian Edge, Armor Crush, and Hyosho Ranryu.
Yeah.
And they've all increased by slight amounts. There's
Yeah.
nothing major, but you've got a general increase.
Yeah.
Well,
the latter
Hyosho
one has had a
Ranryu's gone from-
100 increase.
Yeah,
That's
from
a bit,
1200 to 1300. That's very big.
Yeah.
But you're at the point there where your potency is getting a bit ridiculous,
Yeah.
to be honest.
The same can be said for Samurai, which has minimal buffs as well. Not, I guess. Is there anything worth mentioning here?
It's the same thing. Hakaze, Jinpu, Shifu, Ogi Namikiri, and Kaeshi Namikiri
Kaeshi-
have gone up.
Namikiri has gone up by 150 from 1200
Yeah.
to 1350. So that's another
Both
big.
Namikiri skills got a pretty decent
Yeah.
buff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's generic buff.
Yeah, and the same again for machinist, drill, air anchor, and chainsaw. They've had like 20.
This is very
They've
minor.
all gone the same.
Yeah, they've all gone
They're
from
all
550 to
identical.
570.
Yeah.
For dancer, same really.
Same thing.
Same thing. Cascade, fountain, reverse cascade, fountain fall. They've had minor increases, about like 20 or 40-ish.
Yeah.
While technical finish has had 4 steps potency been increased from 1080 to 1200.
That's
So-
quite a big buff.
Yeah. Black mage, same
There you go, Mela.
again. Really, it's
Yeah.
not that exciting, but fire 3 240 to 260. Blizzard 3 same thing, 240 260. Blizzard 4 has got 10 potency increase from 300 to 310. Fire 4, same thing, 300 to 310. And Xenoglossy has gone from 660 to 760.
That's a big
So
buff.
that's the
isn't it,
biggest one.
Lassie?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
We're already in a good place, though.
yeah. Summoner has had some buffs as well. Astral Impulse, 430 to 440. Ruby Right, 430 to 450. And Fountain of Fire, 520 to 540. Not big buffs, but I don't think they need that
Ruby
much.
Right.
Summoner needs a buff that much.
Ruby
No.
Right was, I think, the most needed one.
Yeah.
I mean, as
Yeah.
someone who plays it Summoner casually, because
That's the
If
casting
Freaks-
one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's Ifrit's gem, which was always the weakest for the amount of time you had to lose while using it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Summoner's in a great place. All it needs is amalgamating abilities together so they line up
Mhm.
properly.
Yeah.
'Cause they have this weird thing where sometimes it's like the gem action and sometimes it's ruin gets replaced and it's stupid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's buffs for the jobs. There's also like a change to PvP because of the Dragoon's change, and that's literally target party member is no longer required to remain within 15 yalms. It's interesting that the distance
Range
was
hasn't
bigger
changed.
in PvP. Because it was 12 originally in battle
Yeah.
content, but this was 15 in order to activate left eye. And the channeling animation, of course, is not visible in PvP anymore either.
What was the PvP skills cast range originally? Because that's not changed.
What range?
Like the cast range to actually apply it to a party
Oh,
member. 'Cause
Right.
that's not changed in PvP, so maybe you still need to be closer than you do for
Oh
PvE.
yeah, you're right. That's not listed. Yeah, I don't know how that works. All right, maybe there's already different rules for that
Yeah,
skill,
maybe.
and I don't know. Okay. I think that's it from
That's
this
about all
patch.
that's necessary from these notes.
Yeah. So that is
Yeah.
patch 6.08. That brings us.
Should be the last
Yeah.
one before. Should be the last one before 6.1.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to MogMail. Now. And we'll start with this MogMail. Ooh. From Valvedrix Varan from Ragnarok. Greetings once again, speakers. As we're about to move into our second major story arc, I've been thinking about 14's story gating. Personally, I'm all for it because it makes the game more narratively cohesive and makes the sheer amount of content less overwhelming when it's not thrown at us all at once. It's something other MMOs don't do, and I find them a lot less approachable due to that. However, looking at it from a new player's perspective, they have the base game and 4 expansions worth of story to get through now, which is at least 200 hours of content. If I had to guesstimate it, I feel like it's going to become less of a boon and more of a problem the further we go with this game. Since we're moving into a new story arc, do you think they should do something to make it accessible without needing to complete the Hydaelyn and Zodiark arc first or pay for a skip? And if so, how should they go about it? Aside from 14, the only other MMO I play is Star Wars The Old Republic, and it offers you a choice of where to start when you make your character. You can either start from the beginning, or make an expansion-ready character that forgoes all the catch-up. I'm not sure if that would work in our game at all, though. Thank you, and please stop killing my kin in Final Fantasy 15. That is a reference. Yeah, okay. This is a problem.
That's a big issue.
Yeah. It's an issue that has been sort of growing, I mean, with each expansion, obviously, and it's something we've, I think, started to talk about a little bit. Now it feels most natural to do something, because since we have this story, it's done. Do you think it would make sense to have an option to start like post Hydaelyn Zodiac? Like, and if so,
the thing is, you would, if you'd wanted to do that, you'd still need a catch-up, like synopsis of what's happened. You'd still need like a good 15 to 30-minute cutscene to explain what's happened.
Yeah,
unless the new story is completely removed from it.
Yeah, they could put together like a cinematic or something that explains the Hydaelyn Zodiac story, and like because one of the biggest problems is that the MSQ will still continue, right? So the Scions will still have this connection with you, and will reference things that have happened in the past. So I don't know how they're going to solve that.
Do you think it needs to be a full synopsis, or do you think it just needs to touch upon certain key elements, like explaining who the Scions are, explaining key aspects of the game's lore, such as Dynamis, I guess now, and Aether?
I think, that's probably... Yeah, we don't want people to have to sit through like an hour-long, cutscene.
Like, do they fully need to know who Hydaelyn and Zodiac were? They're not actually going to be that relevant moving forward.
Not necessarily, but I don't think it. I don't want them to waste resources on like having a conversation options for if you've not done the old stuff all the time.
No, it would assume that you've done them.
Yeah, it has to assume. Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise there'll be a lot of work. Yeah, because that's kind of why they stopped doing the legacy stuff after like A Realm Reborn. They did it in Heavensward, I think, as well.
There are some tips to it even now. Like, if you've not done this job quest, you won't get it.
But that's on such a small scale compared to what we're talking about here. We're talking about someone who has skipped the entire saga, the arc, and now everyone in the MSQ. Yeah, that's a lot of work.
I think it would be very interesting if they made some sort of like the equivalent to the intro cut storyline for Limpsa, Gridania, and Uldar. Except they started in Sharlayan.
Yeah.
And then you end up going to the students of Baldessian or whoever is going to be our main hub moving forward. But, as you've said, that's going to be a lot of work.
Yes.
You could maybe have them arrive in Sharlayan and have an optional side quest where they go to like the Studium and get background lore. Yeah. And if you don't want to do that, you could just get on with the MSQ. But I don't know. I feel like you won't be able to enjoy this game to the same degree if you've not.
It's the problem with this game, isn't it? Is that you kind of have to go through all that story.
You can get into it. You can probably build these relationships after the fact with these characters.
It depends on what they're doing in the next patch, like how the story will treat the Warrior of Light at that point. Like, will they do a lot of referencing from now on? Will they ever like talk about like Hydaelyn and Zodiac in any big way? If they're not doing that, then maybe it'll be easier. Maybe this is a new truly a new chapter.
Maybe that'll be part of the challenge of how they write moving forward.
Yeah.
I think there's ways they can do it, but don't waste too much resource on.
Well, at some point they have to spend resources on making the game more
accessible.
Because we can't just keep ignoring it, because we are talking like Valvodric said, like 200 hours of story. That's a lot to dump on a new player. And the only option then being spending more money on this game they just bought. to
true.
get through.
As we get further and further away from it, A Realm Reborn is only going to get more and more like unwelcoming in terms of its
Yes.
gameplay cycle
Mm-hmm.
compared to the
True.
current game as it is now.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. Bundle a story skip boost thing with the next expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And
That is a
potentially puts
possible.
in a synopsis storyline, like cutscene for new players.
Maybe have, because we have this system in place already when you skip. I think it's when you skip a level, or not a level, but like if you jump a character, it'll place you in front of the smith. What are they called? The smith? No, what are they called? The novice. The smiths.
They are.
To like encourage you. It also gives you like a pop up. You should be doing this now. Maybe have that happen, like with story recap,
and maybe either add that to the Smith or make a equivalent PC.
Yeah.
That stands next to them.
And then you can
chronicler,
choose,
and he just tells you everything.
Yeah, then you can choose to watch that synopsis, get into the story, or you can make the choice to be like, I don't care. I'm just going to jump into this new story, and then you have sort of decided. Then that's fine, even if they are referencing old things. You know, you don't understand that because you didn't do the recap.
Yeah,
that's on you.
You chose
then.
not to. Yeah, I would go with that.
And that probably isn't too hard to do. Like, remember when they made that that whole video, which is weird. It's not included, I think, in the. Was that a 1.0 thing? There's like a recap of the. No, it wasn't a 1.0 thing. It was a Realm Reborn that came with a collector's edition. It's Louis Sois narrating the story of the Seventh Umbral or Calamity and the days before. That was like an hour, and I'm sad that that's not available in the game. I wish they had like some way of having that accessible in game because it gives you all the lore about like 1.0.
Or even if not in game. Upload it to the Final Fantasy XIV
Right.
YouTube channel and have a link to it, similar to how they have a link to the community.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they only used to do this for every new major arc, I think. So just do it this time.
Well,
Iron it out.
They've said this is going to be another 10-year arc.
go.
I can't imagine they're planning another 10 years after that.
No.
No. So,
A 30-year MMO.
oh, we'll be so old by the end of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's I was trying to remember what it's called. It's on YouTube. Someone has already uploaded it, obviously, but I can't remember it right now. If I find it while I'm editing this, the link to it will be in the description, I guess. But yeah, it's very interesting. If you don't know the story about 1.0, you should definitely watch that. Okay. Do we have? Don't think we have time for more MogMail right now. We'll save
one more.
Okay, one more. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we only have half an hour, but all right, we'll do it. Let's see. So the next MogMail is from Azora Akari. Hey speakers, I'm a machinist main and really love how cool the jobs look. Besides that stupid box sidearm that needs to be toggled. Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
But I've come to a realization. Machinist is kind of terrible. It feels bad that it has basically no party utility besides the party-wide defense buff that every other ranged DPS has, where Bard and Dancer both get to help out with a wide range of party utility, especially Dancer. I just feel like a jerk being a machinist standing in my corner shooting things and not actually helping the party in any tangible way. Do you think machinists need more party utility? I was reading an op-ed recently that suggested Chainsaw should apply a debuff similar to Trick Attack. Something, anything like that would be welcome. As of now, I'll continue to look cool, but I'll still feel bad that I'm not contributing more than just mediocre DPS.
I mean, that's sort of the every type of DPS has this job. The selfish DPS. For like casters, it's Black Mage. For melee, it's Samurai, and for range physical, it is Machinist.
Thank you, Win. Yeah.
But the unfortunate side of that is Machinist is also quite poor DPS. What it needs is to be buffed in its DPS, so it's outperforming Bard and Dancer in terms of raw DPS, but they make up that with their party buffs.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. I just can't stop thinking about that box. This is the box side. I know it's lore.
Thing?
It's lore bound. It's because of the story of Machinist, but
I'm sure you can slash etherometer off, but it's only personal. I'm sure they added that ages ago.
Did
Oh
they?
no, that was Gorse Barrel. No,
Yeah,
it was
it's Gorse Barrel.
No, that's Gorse Barrel.
Yeah.
Which is fun. Oh, remember that? Remember forgetting to put on Gorse Barrel halfway through a fight?
Remember having anything that wasn't like a shotgun or like a big weapon?
Oh my god.
Because that looked stupid. Remember you got the tiny gun from like PvP? Yeah.
Wasn't your rotation you used to turn Gorse Barrel on for certain abilities? Because it was like the cast thing, and then you had to take it off. God. Machinist used to be awful. Yeah,
well, to be
Machinist
fair,
had like a 28 button opener.
Yeah, that was pretty shit.
It was excellent.
I can't believe Bard as well used to be caster. That's such a weird chapter in this game where Bards had to cast.
Heavensward was strange, and there are some people that are still nostalgic for that.
I'm nostalgic for Raging Strikes on Black Mage.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that was already OP.
Technically yours.
Yeah.
Regarding the idea of it getting a trick attack of its own, I suspect they want to save that for whatever ends up sharing gear with Ninja.
Oh yeah,
that's probably true.
Yeah,
which is a shame because if you're not gonna buff the party, you might as well debuff the boss because you're not making up your DPS.
True.
Basically, change class.
No, play what you want. Every class is technically playable.
No, they're all viable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's true. Right, there you go. Thank you, Usora. Now we move on to the main story, which interviews with Yoshi-P. There are two of them. There's one from Diamond Magazine and Nikkei. Nikkei?
Is it both? Nikkei. Yeah, they're both the Japanese business magazines, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like Financial Times.
Yeah. The main sort of theme for these interviews is the design philosophy behind 14. So let's jump into it. When did you notice the public needs MMOs had changed? That's a difficult start. This is a difficult start. Regarding MMO, huh? When did you?
Regarding.
Yeah.
And yes, the public's needs regarding MMOs have changed.
Oh, now it made sense when you read it, Mela. Okay, Yoshida says, about 15 years ago, the growth of smartphone technology allowed for asynchronous text communication. As a result of the spread of smartphones, the speed and volume of information rapidly increased, and the effectiveness of PR through mass media decreased. The games and hobbies he spends time on have become more multifaceted. I'm assuming and he has to spend more time on text and social media. Because of this, he found it difficult to pick the type of game where if you can't play for long hours, it's hard to have fun. Yoshida says, certainly, I'm not saying this type of game is unfun. I was raised on these games. I understand there's a fun that can only be found there. Yeah?
Old MMOs,
it was a different time.
There was a weird sense of community, but you felt like you were actually, you belonged in that world.
Mm-hmm.
You had to work for it.
Yeah. Old MMOs today, it's weird because you look at them and you're like, why did we play that? Like, why would you want to spend 25 hours trying to find like an onion? Like that's the kind of shit you did in MMOs back then. It was like, oh, I have to find this rare onion. Yeah,
the rare onion. You're amazing.
You have the rare onion. Wah. Yeah,
we'll
weird
never
times.
Get that back, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
No, the world has moved on.
There's still people playing RuneScape.
That is true. RuneScape is, and I mean 11. We keep bringing it up, but 11 has a lot of that bullshit stuff in there as well. But I don't think I find it
push through that opening.
Yeah.
Oh,
I still like wonder every now and then whether like if there's truly new players coming into 11, because they want to play 11 or because they thought they got 14 and that's 11. Which, wow, that's a disappointment.
That would be so funny. Oh, that would be so funny.
They're like, wow, this game takes a long time to patch, huh? This Final Fantasy 14. Yeah. Let's see. Yes, because 14 is based on a recovery project after a huge failure, it was decided to have a preference. We have a preference that more people come in contact with the game than before. The game design is, even if you eat it bite by bite, it's still very fun. But from an MMO, even if you eat it bite by bite,
That's
it's
not a
still
food
very
analogy,
fun.
Though. Surely it should be it's still very tasty or something. Or...
Yeah. Either way, though, that is a weird thing to say because even if you eat it bite by bite, that doesn't make it less tasty.
Well, no.
I think the idea is that like he wanted a game, an MMO that you could either play for long periods of time, or you could play for short bursts,
bite size,
drop it and pick it up again. Yes,
right.
It's a weird analogy.
The goal is to finish the burger, though.
Right. Well,
Everyone wants to finish the burger.
We talked about old MMOs before, and that's sort of the difference. Is that you couldn't do it piece by piece in old MMOs. You had to actually be there. I remember like camping for Notorious Monsters in 11, having to sit up all night, and then we'd had shifts for people that be like, okay, I'm tapping out. It's your turn now. Like that's how it worked. In what he wanted was something where you can be like, okay, I'm out, bye everyone, and then come back at random and be like, oh, I'll just pick up where I left off, and there's no worry.
Yeah.
But it's still a weird analogy. I don't know. But for an MMO, the need for an exceptional experience you can only have in this intensified world is something I think that will gradually increase. So the needs change with the times, but also repeat.
Is he like trying to predict the second coming of third coming, like a resurgence of MMOs?
I think this would be
the
third.
This would be the third, probably. Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, I feel
the market's gone very stale.
Well, what's weird, and I'm so sorry that I have to say this word, that this word has to escape my mouth, but this bullshit, the metaverse shit. What are MMOs but metaverse? Like that is we already do that. Have you seen this metaverse shit, by the way? I can't believe
MMOs
what I'm seeing.
That we have right now, you can't scam people to make real life money on very easily. Whereas the new ones, you will be able to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The
future of MMO is bleak, to be honest with you, right now.
Do you remember PlayStation Home?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
cute. What the metaverse is. But somehow it's worse.
Miiverse or whatever it was. Is that what it was called?
Miiverse was never on the same
Miiverse was a
scale
different
as,
thing.
Wasn't there a Nintendo thing, though?
PlayStation Home was this like it was like this
hang out
hub.
with people.
It's literally metaverse. I'm telling you right now. It's you just walked around and you could buy shit and store like
you could watch movies in the world.
Yes.
In PlayStation Home.
Yes.
Excuse me. What is Second Life that came out in?
Oh yeah, Second Life,
2003?
of course. Yeah. Same thing. But the thing, it's and now they've just
20 years almost.
It bothers me that they've made this like new thing called the metaverse, and everyone has to be there, buy NFTs or whatever the fuck. It's so stupid.
It's awful, isn't it?
I hate this world right now. And here we are. We've been doing this shit for years. We've been doing this for decades. Anyways, what efforts have you made to retain the player base? Yoshida says, the development team plans not just for the immediate future, but several years ahead. But also the customer's demand for, I want to enjoy myself now, is always the first priority. To bridge that gap, for over 10 years, conversations with customers has been very important for Final Fantasy XIV. This led to a good cycle of customers bringing along more new customers. He thinks this is the main reason the player base continues to increase. Oh yeah, I agree.
So you can tell this is a financial or a business magazine because he refers to us as customers and not players.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so there you go. That's he's right though. That's how 14 works, is by you discover the game, you tell your friends, and then your friends tell, it keeps going.
I would say that this he's more also talking about how the 14 development team is more open
Yes.
and like interactive with the player base than
Very
other
open.
It's very
So
MMOs on the
open.
market.
So open that Yoshi-P will sometimes just sit down and explain like boring, minute details about how servers work, which is, I mean, who else does that? You compare that to like, I'm sorry, but World of Warcraft, where you're lucky if you hear anything sometimes. So you know, it's yeah, that's one of the big strengths of 14. An S after a th. Impossible for Norwegian. The metaverse is a hot topic, but it could be said MMOs are already part of this. To what extent do you think it's true that games could penetrate the real world? Yoshida says, it's not a question. It's not a question of whether the real or virtual world is better, but there's a clear route to the world being transposed digitally. Whether that takes 30 years, 50 years, whether that takes 30 years or 50 years, due to the coronavirus pandemic, working from home, oh no, has increased and meetings have moved online. The next step is avatars to represent yourselves in meetings online.
Oh.
No.
I kind of don't hate that.
But here we go, everyone. I've already warmed you up to it. The metaverse is neither a system nor entertainment. The world...
It's kind of insulting.
Good. The word internet is being used less and less because it's commonplace. Our lives are online. I predict the same will happen to the metaverse. Of course, there's a business opportunity there.
He doesn't really say much beyond that.
No, that's all he's going to say, really, about the metaverse. And I wouldn't say it's a great review of it so far. And I agree. It's not a system nor entertainment. For the most part, from what I have seen, it's people just standing still in the Nintendo 64 world with some like advertisements everywhere. What kind of dystopian shit is this?
Yeah, it's for the people that want to walk through Times Square without walking through Times Square.
And in 1994 technology. It's so bizarre.
The real world is too high definition to kill. It hurts my eyes.
Yeah.
Whew. Okay. Moving on from that. What are the conditions for a game to succeed in the future marketplace? Yoshida says, there's no right answer to measuring the success of an MMO right now, whether it's momentary earnings, low unit cost of running the service, or having millions of long-time users. With the aforementioned diversification of customer needs or reduction in free time without defining what does success mean to us, we can't create a strategy to increase our profits and market share. There's that dry bit. That This is a business magazine interview. In video games, there are many opportunities for accidental, huge successes. Right now, I'm also working on Final Fantasy XVI. But with how the possibilities for fun are unlimited, even if we aim for it, we can't be completely on target. I feel the production process itself is fun.
That's another business magazine thing of where like something as like benign as fun, it has to be put in quotation marks because it's like it's a measurable quantity.
And then finally, what kind of year do you think 2022 will be for games? Yoshida says, I wish I could get more days I can go snowboarding, but since there are new challenges I want to take up in game development, they come into conflict. He laughs. For the industry, the number of titles utilizing the full potential of current generation consoles will increase. Players will be happy, but on the other hand, on the production side, we will reach a turning point due to rapidly rising production costs and increasing technical level of production, and whether those challenges can be overcome will soon be a test. Yeah. He keeps bringing up snowboarding. Where is the Gold Saucer snowboard game? Like, seriously, where is it? He loves snowboarding.
Something is coming in 6.1. They have told us previously that there will be a new minigame being added to the Gold Saucer. Maybe it is the next one. I hope that it's not Blitzball.
Blitzball Manager.
Blitzball Manager 2022.
I hope it's Blitzball Manager 2022.
Oh, Lonergan would come back.
Yeah.
That would be great.
I mean, it could pull people in the same way that Mahjong did.
Yeah, true. Oh my god, that would be weird. Like people playing 14 just to play Blitzball Manager. I mean, okay.
There would be at least a handful.
Yeah, at least Lonigan. All right, so this is the Nikkei interview.
This is the best. This is the best phrase.
To get right to the point, why have so many players fallen in love with Final Fantasy XIV? Yoshida says, it's hard to say the reason. It's a fact the game is loved by so many people, and 11 years after what was called the failure of the century 1.0's launch, I don't think there are many similar services still increasing in popularity. I love that. Failure of the century, Tanaka. But it's not easy to give an explanation why. However, I always think MMOs aren't just video games, but also services. I've been an online gamer since I was in my teens. I've had the experience of thinking I'm receiving a service. Discontent can build up. Users said they aren't buying a finished product, but a continuous service. Also, I felt the flow of information from the management side was inadequate. Misunderstandings accumulated, and the user-developer gap widened. Because of this experience, he thought that Final Fantasy XIV 2.0 must honestly face the players. That's why he started the live letters. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, comparing 1.0 and 2.0, like developer side, remember they didn't even want forums originally.
God.
But when the game launched, they're like, because the beta forums, there was a lot of confusion during the beta testing, and I don't think there were actual confusions. I think they were just being hammered by like angry players that were like upset at how shitty the game was, and then they just said, oh no, it's so there's so much like confusion in the forums. Let's just not have any, so that people couldn't like complain, right? So it was like a tactic.
As if there wasn't a specifically sanctioned location for them to complain.
Oh yeah,
people would not take their complaints elsewhere.
What was so funny though is that spawned this, like, obviously because there was no official forums, people made forums. So there were all these unofficial forums flourishing everywhere. Where I don't think I've ever seen, like, at least the first couple of months, like anything positive on any of those forums. It was all complaints. What a Wild West time it was. And then the absurdity of not having any input from like Tanaka or Komoto, the producer and director, completely silent. During while the game is crashing and burning, people screaming in the streets, forums popping up everywhere, complete silence. On the lodestone, literally just going, let's have a pumpkin carving contest, everyone. It's like, what are you doing? Meanwhile, A Realm Reborn, like the moment we had like server issues, Yoshi-P's like immediately on the forums. He's like, shit's bad. And then the following day, shit's very bad, and here's why shit is bad. Like this long list of shit. You really feel like he wants you to like I don't know. It's weird. You know what I mean, though. Like it's like Yoshi-P. You expect it at this point that Yoshi-P will tell us what's wrong immediately, and we usually get an explanation within 24 hours. Usually, if something's wrong. So, I agree that is. And it's also apparently a very unique thing with 14. I think other MMOs are starting to catch on to like how Yoshi-P is working. But before Yoshi-P started doing this, that was sort of very normal with MMOs at the time. Did you get attacked by a bug?
It was a mosquito.
Oh, I see. All right. Yes. Where are we? Yes. Okay. So, why do you give out so much? Speaking of, why do you give out so much information in advance? Yoshida says games are something you actively take part in, unlike video content, which is generally a passive experience. That's true. You get a finished product; it's already packed. They don't need to explain anything. The product should explain itself. Therefore, if people don't have the expectation that playing now is fun, but it will also be fun from now on, enthusiasm for the game will decrease. This is actually the most important thing. From the very first stages of the relaunch of the game, when we asked, what is an MMORPG, we answered, looking forward to the future, having fun now. That's a pretty good. I mean, it's it's clumsily translated, I think, but it's like
looking forward to the future, having fun now.
It makes sense because you're having fun now, but you're still looking forward to stuff that's yet to come.
Well, when they tease like when they do the lifeless, it's like, oh, you'll get to do this dungeon, but we'll only show you a little bit.
Yeah, because I think that's why he did the video thing, like a movie thing. Because you watch a movie, the movie's over, fun is over, that's over now. But with an MMO, you've done something like, say, you've cleared a raid. That was fun. I had fun now. I'm looking forward to the next. Do you know what I mean? I think that's what it means.
It's also similar. It reminds me of back before I played MMOs, when I was just like a console gamer mostly, where like I remember like playing games, like I'm having fun now. Oh, the game's over. Now I have to look forward to the next installment of fun.
See,
in 6 months time.
Because that's also something we feel when when you finish a game, that empty feeling because you know it's over. You don't really get that in an MMO because you're like, oh, that's done now. But there's more to come. So you know. Yeah,
it's not a dead end with an MMO.
Right.
Like you might tire out and you might drift away briefly.
Yeah.
But you'll always know there's something more to come, and it's never from like, oh, it's over.
Right.
That's true. I often find myself stalling towards ends of games, and sometimes just never quite finishing them because I.
Did you hate that feeling of like
I
it
don't
being
like
done?
It sometimes.
I agree. Yeah.
I've done it with some TV shows as well, where like I get to the final season, and I'm like. End this yet.
Yes. Yeah. All right. That became the key to users continuing to play for a long time. He explains that in the case of microtransactions, at that moment you buy what you want, and it's sufficient if the value is shown on the spot. But with a monthly subscription, players will inevitably look ahead to what comes next. Telling players in advance what they can expect leads to a sense of security and anticipation. This is a must for subscription-based businesses. I agree. Again, you'd want to kind of know what you're paying for. Like, is it worth it?
Was that a piece of advice for Activision right now? Or Blizzard?
Yeah. Okay.
Microsoft now.
Yeah. Oh God. How is that? After the failure, we're fucked. We're all fucked. Anyways, after the failure of the century in 1.0, how did you capture the players' hearts again? And I love this.
It's not necessarily capturing the players' hearts, because that implies they were ever captured to begin with.
No, that's true. Well, they were at remember at the very beginning. It's Final Fantasy. So you come in with your heart captured and then getting it ripped to shreds.
But the amount of hearts they captured wasn't even enough.
That's true.
They needed more.
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts.
Yoshida starts with immediate. This is his answer. I wasn't on the original staff for Final Fantasy XIV, but I was a Final Fantasy fan since I was very young, so I understood many players' sense of disappointment. It didn't deliver on what people expected. We had to sit down and face the players. While clearly showing where the problems are, we shared our thoughts and moved forwards, presenting our plans. As a result, I think people who've played for a long time feel that this is a service that belongs to them. Yeah, that's it's true. We've talked about this
with a lot of MMOs, that people feel a sense of ownership over it.
Yeah.
It's an evolving experience rather than something that is static.
It's something we've talked about as well. It's why 14 has very dedicated white knights. I'm sorry, but I have to mention that because they feel like we're like this phoenix that has been reborn and it must be protected at all costs. So
we don't know if it will happen again.
Right. Right. But hey, that's how it is. Players also feel a pride in creating this service together with the devs. Yeah, that also adds to that. Okay, a bit later on, the interviewer returned to the topic of 2.0's development. Why did you choose such a steep road of making a completely new game? Yoshida says, the main objective was to regain the lost trust from 1.0. As a Final Fantasy fan myself, I thought the greatest damage was the severe harm done to the trust build up over the years. If that trust wasn't won back, it would have repercussions for the entire Final Fantasy series. So when I was put in charge of Final Fantasy XIV and presented a plan to the company, I said, you can't think about it just in terms of profits now, but the profits in the future, if you win back trust. But if you don't do this now, the loss will be huge.
That's very true.
It's very
This
true.
is also directly following 13, which, while not a failure, was very controversial at the time.
Yes, it was.
I think
And to
13
this
was
day.
high budget as well.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
went through too much iterations, so
Yes.
they probably didn't make much of the money back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of like he presented it like that to the company, but also I think the company at that point were like, anything, we'll just do it. We'll just do it.
As someone who wasn't really a Final Fantasy fan back during 1.0 times and just after 13 release, like, I had the perspective of like, wow, that's a dying franchise.
Yeah, it was
That's fair.
I had like a bit of an existential crisis because I'd always heard like, because 13 was disappointing. I played 13, thought it was shit. But I'd always heard people that didn't play. Well, sorry, I said shit, but you know what I mean. It's a bad final. I think it's a not great Final Fantasy game. But so I'd always heard from people that don't play Final Fantasy that they're like 14 games at this point. Like you've milked it enough, right? You can't just keep running. And I'm like, no, it's not like that. But then 14 happened like after like 13. I'm like, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe this franchise has gone on for too long. This is the result. Like, look at this shit. Like, this is nothing. So yeah, I definitely felt that I was starting to wane off Final Fantasy during 1.0. So that was a real risk. Yeah, he could have risked they could have lost a lot of Final Fantasy fans during that. Okay. How did you put the production team together? She just says, I'm basically a positive thinker. I thought no matter what we did, it couldn't get worse than it already was. So my feeling was we have no choice but to get on with it. He sought to confirm the intentions of all the staff. He took all the staff out. Oh yeah, sorry if you're a little confused. Sometimes we'll just be reading like
direct quotes.
Yeah. So this is just a digest of what he said. I think this is not a.
Well, I also think in the actual article it went from like direct quotes to also like summarizing words that he said.
Right. Okay.
Rather than like it's unlike an internet like interview. For the most part, they try and transcribe everything, whereas these they like to like neaten up. It has to fit on a magazine page.
Right. That's true. Yeah. He sought to confirm the intentions of all the staff. He took all the staff out to eat and told them, work with us for 3 months. After that, if you think this is no good, you can move to another department. We'll make proper provisions for your transfer, so it's okay to say you want out. About 90% of the staff remained.
Those 10% kicking.
Those 10% now, yeah, they probably go... To keep up motivation, it was necessary to hold the team's interest, so he thought that the story of the new Final Fantasy XIV should incorporate the replacement of the old. Inside the game, the world was destroyed, and 5 years later, the world is reborn. The staff got on board because this sounded interesting. Yeah?
I think they chose 5 years because it wasn't 5 years in real life. It was 3.
Yeah. Also, and 5 years is such an arbitrary number. Like, why didn't they go higher? Like, to give it more time to rebuild? Because 5 years is not a lot of time to rebuild after all of that.
But there are characters that it would be weird, like, the Company of Heroes. It would be weird if they were, like, 40 years ago.
They had to, take that into consideration, of course. All right. At events and so on, the staff appear in front of players and they can see your faces. They understand the team is having fun making the game. Yoshida says...
You can see your faces. I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
It can feel very alienating when
the
staff of a company is just so faceless to you.
1.0, like, I barely knew who Tanaka and Komoto were. I never saw... Well, I played 11, so I had some knowledge of Tanaka, but I didn't really see him in, like, a 14... I had to look up interviews to figure that out, right? He didn't have, was weird. So yeah, that is a big deal.
Would you have been able to name who Soken was? He was working on 1.0.
No idea.
Or Koji Fox.
Nope. no idea. They were never, no one was shown. To win back trust, I needed to appear out in front. Before I took charge of Final Fantasy XIV, I thought that media appearances were mainly the producer's job, not my job as primarily the director. I thought it's not my main job to take interviews. I can easily get carried away. It could lead to misunderstandings. So I avoided media appearances. Strained laugh. Of course, when it was announced I was leading this new team, the player reaction was, "Who the hell is he?" True. So I needed to properly go out in front of players and convey what the problems are now and what we're thinking about for the future. Yeah, that was also a thing. Like Yoshi-P was like nobody when he was announced. I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, to be fair,
everybody.
Yeah, now he's everybody. Like he is Yoshi-P. God, it's weird. It's been 11 years. Oh my God, it's been 11 years since the launch of Final Fantasy XIV. 8 years since A Realm Reborn. What's the trick to keeping the service running so long? Yoshida says, don't overstretch yourself. What's important in running a service is, even if you might be profitable now, don't invest that money into PR and so on without thinking ahead. So that players won't be disappointed 5-10 years from now, you have to tighten up where you can. If you spend too much money on PR or marketing, but the player count and sales decrease, advertising costs will have to be cut. There will be a public image that the game lost momentum and passed its peak, and this will discourage new entrants. They'll think, I really want to enter, but this service is already finished. So no matter how big this scale grows, I'm aware we must pay attention to profits.
That's fair.
Yeah? Because that's the thing with, especially if you have a subscription service, if you get this like sense that the game is already like past its prime, you might not want to invest. Right.
No.
Unless
it's free.
Right. He explains that even the fan fests are carefully planned, so they end up in the black profit-wise. Yoshida says, I think
it's too financial times now.
I think the hardest thing for players, or in other words, the worst thing the management side could do is to terminate the service. If it ends, the world will disappear and you won't be able to visit again. Even for one day, I feel I have a responsibility to keep the service going. In an extreme case, as long as monthly profits aren't in the red, we can absolutely continue. It's okay even if the profit is 1 yen, so I pay attention to the immediate profitability. Use the accumulated profits to maintain this world.
Very true.
Yes, which is
close it down until it's rubbish.
That's why 11 is still operating as well, is because they want to run it as long as they can. It can pay for itself.
They're mainline Final Fantasy games. If they were to ever shut down, unless they created some sort of museum style server that allows people to experience the game as it is to a certain extent. Now, obviously, there won't be players everywhere. That's like 2 main stories in the series lost.
Yeah.
And one of them, possibly one of the best, if not the best.
Yeah.
And then 11, yeah, whatever. But it's still a story.
It still has a decent story.
Even though I don't enjoy the gameplay loop so far of 11, I would be very sad if this story was like non-accessible.
Yeah.
To new fans of the franchise.
Yeah.
I am intrigued by 11's world. I would like to get into it, at least to experience the story.
Yeah. But, I still hope for, like, a single-player version of that game, but...
One day.
One day. All right, that's the interview, and believe it or not, that's the show. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Remember to follow on Twitter at SpeakersXIV, twitch.tv/SpeakersOfHeidelin, youtube.com/SpeakersXIV, !Discord in chat. If you want to join our Discord server, if you're watching on demand, link is in the description. Remember to send us a MogMail, SpeakersXIV.com/MogMail. And if you're watching live, we'll of course have the post show where we'll be answering questions from the syndicate, so make sure you catch that as well. That's it, everyone. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Bye.